Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Moms. This is Dorothy Pilarski. I'd like to extend a big warm welcome to all of you that are signing on. We're thrilled that you're here. We're also thrilled to have a very, very special guest today, Sister Helena Burns. I'm thrilled to have her here. And again, some of you have been here on Midday Moms once. Some of you have been Midday Moms twice. Some of you, maybe this is your very first time. We'd like to tell you a little bit more about ourselves. So Midday Moms is a program of our ministry, CatholicMomsGroup.com. It's 3 words, CatholicMomsGroup.com. We are faith partners with the Archdiocese of Toronto, and we are on a mission to revive the vocation of motherhood. And we do so primarily by helping parishes start Catholic moms groups. Sister Helena is going to start her presentation in just a few minutes, but before she does, I wanted to share with you our ministry video, because of course we're hoping that someone out there, whether you're from Arizona, Whitby, or North Pole, we actually have a mother's group in North Pole, we're hoping that you'll consider starting a Catholic moms group. So I'm just going to share our ministry video, and as soon as we're done the ministry video, Sister Helena will begin her talk on parenting the media. So a big welcome, warm welcome, and our ministry video is right here.
Mothers, by our very nature, we are nurturing, loving caregivers. We are social beings, made for friendship and community. We are also spiritual by nature, made by a loving God to know Him and love Him, and to pass this love of our Catholic faith on to our children. But right now, many mothers feel overextended, distracted, and exhausted. Though as Catholics, we have the community of our church, many mothers attending Mass could not name the moms sitting next to them in the pew they share. Community and support among Catholic mothers is desperately needed in this hectic and chaotic culture. Your parish needs you to bring these moms together.
Hi, my name is Dorothy Pilarski. I'm the founder of Catholic Moms Group. We at Catholic Moms Group are on a mission to revive the vocation of motherhood. We exist to bring together like-minded, faith-filled mothers who crave community and are focused on spiritual growth, Catholic teaching, and fellowship. Can you imagine a thriving, engaged mothers group at your parish? A group of moms in love with their Catholic faith, ready to serve other mothers no matter what stage of motherhood they're at. Can you imagine what a difference that would make at your parish? Starting a mothers group, it's not rocket science, but working with a team who's done it before and who's done it dozens and dozens of times sure does help. The Catholic Moms Group membership site is an online community that offers training, resources, and dozens of tools for parishes to help them start a mothers group quickly and efficiently. We're here to provide you with a clear path to launching a Catholic Moms Group at your parish. All of our materials are 100% Catholic. We have clearly laid out meetup plans for both moms groups and toddler groups. We are obedient to the magisterium of the Catholic Church. We have created dozens of tools that are going to save you time and energy. And besides that, we love our Blessed Mother. We constantly turn to her for her intercession. You can make a huge impact in your parish, so join us. We are revolutionizing the way parishes start mothers groups by providing parishes with a Catholic mothers group starter kit. and by nourishing and training a community of Catholic mothers group leaders across the world. It's time to start a mothers group at your parish. Join us today.
So if you'd like any additional information about starting a Catholic Moms Group, again, visit our website, catholicmomsgroup.com. Again, I'd like to welcome Sister Helena Raphael Burns. She is a member of the Daughters of St. Paul, an international congregation of Roman Catholic sisters founded to communicate God's word through the media. She has an MA in media literacy. You're just gonna, I always say, you know, Sister Helena is the type of nun that it really doesn't need any introduction. And if you've met her once, you love her forever. She's a dual citizen. She's an American citizen and a Canadian citizen. We're thrilled to have her. A big, big, big warm welcome to Sister Helena Burns. Yay!
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Dorothy. I'm a big fan of the Catholic Moms Group. I think it's a wonderful brainchild, and I hope it spreads all over the world, truly. And I think it will. I really think it will, because moms are so powerful, right? What's that saying? The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And I really believe that. So, yeah. So we're going to be doing Parenting the Media today, and it's going to be a long presentation. So buckle up. It's going to be a 90-minute presentation. We'll see whether or not we have time for Q&A at the end, but I want to just make sure you have lots and lots of wonderful ideas and resources with this incredibly challenging thing that you're facing that no other generation of moms has faced, right? Internet-enabled tablets, where the entire world, and phones and computers, where the entire world, good, bad, and indifferent, is presented to your child in the privacy of your home, whether your child's on a bus or wherever they are. So there are ways and plans to use media well, which is something we Daughters of St. Paul love to do, is use media well, whether that's secular media or Catholic media. So I hope you'll find this presentation helpful to you today. So I'm going to share my screen. I've got this. Oh, look at that. Now I hope I'm going to ask Dorothy if she can see my full screen with no taskbar.
I can see your full screen with no task.
Okay, okay, thank you. And she will let me know if it doesn't advance from slide to slide. Okay. So, you know, with nuns, you're going to pray a lot, right? We always, even though we prayed, we're going to keep praying. See, now it's not advancing for me. There we go. Okay. And if it hasn't advanced, Dorothy will let me know. So let's say this together. Heart of Jesus, we adore thee. Heart of Mary, we implore thee. Heart of Joseph, pure and just. In these three hearts we place our trust. Amen. Isn't that beautiful? Holy Family prayer, right? Okay. And what I'm going to do, if you would like to receive this PowerPoint and all of the resources that I'm mentioning, the free resources that I'm mentioning, please text your email address to this number. Okay. Now don't text your phone number, because you're not going to be getting this stuff via your phone. You're going to be getting it via email. So all you do, no other words, is text your email address to this number. If you put any other words like, hi, sister, it's not going to work. Just your email address. And maybe if you're not sure, like, well, hey, sister, I haven't heard you yet. How do I know I want your stuff? Just jot this down and you can text it later, and I'll put it on again at the end of the presentation. Okay. Now, don't you just love taking advice from people who have no children? Well, actually, I do have children. I'm a spiritual mother, and your kids are my kids. but in a really good way. We just want to support you. We celibates, priests and nuns, right? We want to help you with your kids. What a mammoth task it is today to raise children. It's never been easy, but you guys are up against so much. But that's okay, because our Lord is giving you and your children grace proportionate to what you're facing today. Amen? All right. So I want you to give yourselves a break. So you're probably already very worried and nervous and tense about media and parenting the media. And you think sister's going to come here today to scold you and tell you you're doing a terrible job and what the 10,000 things you need to be doing to parent the media. Nope, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm here to help you and to relieve a burden from you. Now, if you read the write-up to this talk, it said that you need to flip the script in your mind from putting physical parenting first and spiritual parenting second to the exact reverse. What do I mean by that? Well, physical parenting is things like the orthodontist, play dates, violin lessons, soccer, this, that, all the wonderful physical things that are good for your kids, making sure they eat good food, healthy food, get enough sleep, etc., etc. Very important, big part of your duty as a mom. But that's only for this life. Spiritual parenting is for eternity. And parenting the media is part of spiritual parenting. Why? Because it's through the media that your child is being exposed to all kinds of values, anti-values, heroes, anti-heroes, right? Ideas, ideologies. And it is intense, right? And it is beautiful and sparkly and enticing and seductive. You know this. I don't need to tell you this. So if sometimes there's so much required today of physical parenting that if you put that first, you're going to find you have no time left over to do spiritual parenting. And spiritual parenting certainly has a lot to do with prayer, passing on the Catholic faith, and all of that good stuff too. That's huge. The sacraments, huge. So if you just mentally make that shift mentally, that if you're doing some physical parenting, but something spiritual comes up, you let the physical parenting go. If we have to miss soccer practice because we need to have a little chat about porn that was found on a child's tablet or something, that's going to send a message. Whoa, this is so important that I miss soccer practice. Because what's happening, as you know, with a lot of parents is soccer and sports come before Mass on Sunday. And so the child goes, oh, okay, sports are more important than Mass. What you prioritize, is a clear message to your kids. Okay? So who cares what the Joneses are doing? Do not worry about keeping up with your neighbors. Who cares? Who cares what other people are doing? You are responsible for your kids' souls, ultimately, right? Okay. But I know that sounds even more dire, but you knew that. If you're watching this video, you're already responsible, caring, intentional moms. So you already knew that, but I'm going to give you ways to put that spiritual parenting first, always, always. And, if the house is a little dirty, who cares? All this physical stuff, let it go. Be a little more chill about all that stuff and be a lot less chill about spiritual parenting. Okay. Not long ago, I was speaking to Catholic families in London, Ontario, about good use of media, and a dad approached me and confided this fear to me. He said, "Sister, the church lost the sexual revolution, and I'm afraid it's going to lose the digital revolution also." And then not long after that, I was speaking to homeschool families in Virginia, and a very discouraged father came up to me and said, "Sister," and he was a medical doctor, he was an MD. He said, "Sister, it's useless. We can't fight media technology taking over our lives." He was seriously discouraged. He had just read a book called Inevitable on the topic. Well, of course, to both dads, I replied first, nothing is impossible with God, which of course is the answer to everything. But more to the point, I answered, I know, I get it. I know how dire things are. I get how difficult it is to raise kids in the environment of the sex rev and the digi-rev. But we have two practical solutions, two gifts of God. The first being John Paul II's Theology of the Body, and second, the discipline of media literacy, which is ultimately a form of critical thinking applied to media. But today, in today's ubiquitous digital media world, and not just the media, the content, but the devices that we have everywhere. We have phones, we have watches. It's just everywhere. You walk into a store or an airport, and just Big Brother is blasting there, right?
So, sister, we're on the first slide still, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So we have to do something more than just critical thinking, because as our founder, Blessed Father James Alberione, who was a media priest, that's all he ever did, in a sense. He said media, especially film, he said especially visuals, they involve the whole person, not just our minds, our senses, our emotions, our memory, our imagination. So today's media is so all-encompassing. You can just lose yourself in it, right? So we need something a little more than just critical thinking skills, as important as that is. And of course, the mind is queen. The rationality has to lead the rest of the body and the soul. So we are going to need something really powerful to help us. This is ultimately got our theology of the body and our media literacy. And media literacy is questioning media. But this is a spiritual battle. This is spiritual warfare. So we're going to need things like sacramentals, holy water, blessed metals, So the way I say it is that Satan has gone nuclear on us today through the media, right? Nuclear on us and on our kids. So you know what? We're going to go nuclear on him. And you know what? He is terrified of your sacrament of marriage. He doesn't have a sacrament. And your sacrament of marriage plugs you into God, all that God power. And it's not just about your relationship with your spouse, with your husband. It's about raising children. You have all the graces you need to raise your children. And if you're a grandparent, you have a lot of power there too. So bless them. You have the power to bless them. Not like a priestly blessing, but a parental blessing. Bless your children, your grandchildren. Say the rosary for them. Offer the mass for them. Bring them to mass and confession and everything. Make that possible for them. Make that normal and usual for them. Get exorcised salt. That's super powerful holy water. We'll put the salt in the holy water. And salt actually in the bedroom, for example, or wherever around your house, doesn't evaporate like holy water. It stays forever. Okay, put it in the corners of the room so you don't vacuum it up. And if you give the example of someone whom God makes happy, God brings you joy. You're not tense and worried and frantic about the media world. You are living in God's love with joy and warmth. They're going to want to be a person like you. And they're going to say, well, mom seems to get her strength from God. And God seems to make her really happy. So I want that. I want that too. So I'm just going to back this up here. So of course I have a master's in media literacy, but you don't need to get a master's in media literacy education. A lot of it is common sense, but we do need a little help even with our common sense. So the discipline of media literacy is shifting the power from the big bad media. Oh, it's so powerful and it's so flashy. There's all the special effects. How can I, as a little mom, compete with that? Well, what you're doing, not just yourself, but you're enabling your kids and empowering your kids to shift the power to them. They are now asking the questions of the big bad media. The big bad media isn't telling them what's what and asking them questions. They're doing the asking. It's very empowering. So the Catholic Church in 1992 officially adopted a stance of media literacy in regard to media in a document called Nostra Aetate, Dawn of a New Era, which is so encouraging. Now, again, it's still spiritual warfare, but how are we going to, if, we haven't chosen to go off grid? You could choose to do that. Run to the hills, run to the mountains, grow your own food. Not a bad idea these days. But most of us have chosen to stay and remain in a media world, a media saturated world. So how are we going to live well as Catholics in this world? Well, media literacy really is the way. And I'm going to give you some resources where you're going to learn the 5 questions that you ask of all media. It's actually 7 questions because media literacy is a non-sectarian discipline. It's not religious, but it's really something that we love as Catholics because we care about culture, we care about communications, we care about knowledge. And we've added 2 more questions as Catholics to those questions that we ask of all media. And, today it's interesting. I meet many young people, young adults, even seminarians who are almost, I would say, afraid of media. They're afraid to engage. They're disgusted with media. They don't want to engage. Some of them have gotten burned badly, so I don't blame them. I understand where they're coming from. But you know what? Media is strong, but we can be stronger. Media is strong, but we can be stronger. I learned this from a mom in Indiana. She had 5 kids. She was a graphic artist, graphic designer. And she said, the worst thing you can say about anything, but especially media, especially in front of your kids, is, what can you do? Throw your hands up in the air and say, what can you do? She said, first of all, you're acting like you are powerless and you don't have a plan and there's nothing we can do. We have to bow down before whatever the media is doing to us and presenting to us. And she said, and you're telling your children that even the adults are powerless. Okay. She goes, don't ever do that. Okay. Media is strong, but we can be stronger. Our founder, Blessed Father James Alberione, you can watch an amazing free film on his life at mediaapostle.com, was kicked out of the seminary for bad reading. We don't know exactly what kind it was. He was kicked out of the seminary for bad reading. So he was burned. He knows firsthand what media can do to a soul. He turned himself around. His pastor got him into another seminary, which was unheard of. And he began pursuing holiness very seriously. By age 19, he was well on the way. This was a minor seminary he got kicked out of. By age 19, he was well on the way to holiness. And he founded a worldwide Catholic media empire. And in that movie, you will see his, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. He already provided the Catholic Church with a wonderful strategy, vision, and spirituality around media, of us being powerful and using media powerfully. Mediaapostle.com. His journal that we have from his young years is called, he named it, I Was Created to Love God. Wow. All right. So he has so many amazing quotes about media. This is one of my favorites. Some let themselves be dragged by the current. Others use media in edification and joy. Isn't that wonderful? And so on a really positive note, I am watching people on social media come to Jesus Christ and his church through interacting with priests, nuns, lay people who are patient and charitable and answer their questions. They're observing us and engaging with us. And they're finally won over by the conversation, the prayers, the community, the sharing of articles, resources, and even artwork. So we can use this media in a real way. And, Pope Benedict at one point, he said, we can't just call cyberspace that virtual, not real space. He said, there's real people creating real communities, taking real action out there. And we can do a lot of good. Look at us. We're using Zoom right now, right? And this is going to become a YouTube video for forever and ever. Amen. Okay, so praise God. Father Alberione said, fight bad media with good media. Fight fire with fire. Today's media is so enticing, right? It's binge-worthy content, some of it. Even if it's not the best, it just sucks us in. And it's so plentiful, right? We could spend the next trillion years watching. We can never watch and play all the video games and everything. There's just so much content there. And there's something for everyone. Everyone finds what they like about media. They might only have one thing that they like. Maybe it's just music, but it's so addicting, right? And our phones, this little appendage, I used to call it the appendage. It's almost like a person or a buddy now. It's a genie that can do wish fulfillment. And it promises us what we're hardwired for, which is connection, communication, sex, friendship, curiosity, fun. But it doesn't deliver and satisfy the way reality does. And so that's why it can become so addictive. And it's easy to become content with these little joys that this provides, right? We can get so attached to this world because it's all we know. C.S. Lewis said, our desires aren't too big, they're too small. He said, if I discover desires in me that I can't seem to fulfill in this world, I must be made for another world. So the question is, what kind of a world do we want to live in? This, or this? I'm just going to, so you can read this. It says, anybody have any plans to stare at their phones somewhere exciting this weekend? Is that the kind of world we want to live in? I don't. I want this. Do we want this? Or do we want this? A little more of this. Okay. It's our choice. We don't have to use media any way that the world is using it. We are free. I always tell young people, you're free. You can use media any way you want, or you don't have to use media so much. And again, I talk to youth directly as well. And one question I ask them, and I make them do small group work, and then they talk about the problems they're encountering with media, and then they come up with the solutions. And one of the questions is, how can we use social media better? And one teen said, by using it less, starting by using it less. And I tell young people, if you're doing everything the phone says and you're using this 24/7 and all it's bringing you is anxiety and depression, do something else. It's obviously not working. Do something else. You're free. Young people like to rebel against media, the way you're being pushed to use media. Now, do you think that God intended us at some point in history to walk around with a little device 24/7, using it 24/7? Young people sleep with it in their bed, not even on their bed nightstand anymore. It's in the bed with them, which is terrible because of the radiation. And they said, well, it's comforting. Comforting. I don't feel alone. Yikes. Do you think God intended us at some point in history to walk around with a little device 24/7? Is that what he wants? And you know what young people tell me? They say, no, I don't think that's God's will. I said, then why are we doing it? You might as well just give this to the, the little kid in the incubator, the little preemie in the incubator, the neonatal unit or whatever, and then put it in the coffin with us, with the rosary and the Bible. She loved her iPhone. No. This is not. When I say we should be using media humanly, it means that, putting the human first. Okay. Marshall McLuhan told us that the medium is the message. These are not neutral means. The very fact that we choose to carry these around in our hands and be looking at them constantly is the message. That alone is the message. And he said, we shape our media tools and then they shape us if we let them. Now, I'm not going to give you my testimony today. We don't have time, but I was seriously addicted to my phone. When smartphones first came out, Sister Helena, as a hashtag media nun, she really thought that the way to be a good media nun was to be available to her sisters and to people and to be learning all the time and to have this on 24/7. You could get me in 3 seconds. I would answer you in 3 seconds. And I was so frazzled. I was trying to pray and my mind was jumping and I was seeing all these flashing things and I was creating Twitter posts in my brain. And I went cold turkey. That's a whole nother testimony, but I went cold turkey. And now I might get back to you in 3 hours, maybe. And it really frustrates people. Too bad. I'm not your little monkey. Okay. So, and my quality of life is so much better now. All right. So we don't just have to keep charging forward. That's not progress. Sometimes you have to stop, take a deep breath and say, what the heck am I doing? And how can I dial back? Sometimes we have to go backwards to go forwards. All right. Now, I want to talk about innocence. Okay. I think this is a very important topic for moms. And this is something I've been working on because I've noticed that sometimes parents think that innocence is keeping my child ignorant for as long as possible. And that innocence is not ignorance. Now, when kids are really small, you don't want to expose them to anything dark or bad or, to show them like, this is the evil in the world. This is what we don't want, guys, right? You don't even want their little minds to be filled with any of that. So what does innocence really mean? Innocence means that you don't do evil, what we call experiential evil. God knows all about evil, right? But he doesn't participate in evil. He doesn't love evil. He didn't create evil because it's a void. Evil actually doesn't have existence. It's a void. It's the absence of the true, the good, and the beautiful. And so it's an incredibly, it's the grossest imperfection, right? So our standard of innocence is God. Our standard of innocence is God himself. Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. That didn't mean an external perfectionism when Jesus said that, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, comb your hair. No, it's perfect in love. Be perfect in love. Be perfect in innocence. Have nothing to do with evil. Saint Bernadette, when they were interrogating her and they asked her, do you know what a sinner is? She said, yes, it's one who loves sin. She didn't even say one who does sin, because loving sin is to do sin already, because our interior world matters. Isn't that what Jesus came to tell us? The Pharisees were all about externals. And Jesus said, but you are like whitened sepulchres with dead men's bones inside, right? You are like beautiful cups, but there's all gunk inside of the cup. He said, first wash the inside of the cup and then the outside. So media goes in, right? Media affects us inside. And people think, oh, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not actually doing anything, which isn't quite true. For example, with porn, masturbation is going on. So to say I'm not hurting anyone by watching violence and gore and taking pleasure in it. It's not all about sexuality, right? There's so many, there's Satanism, there's a cult, there's grudges and hatred and rejoicing in evil, all that stuff that goes on in our minds, our wills, and our hearts. We don't want that. Jesus came, again, to flip from the externals and the physical to putting the primacy of the spiritual, what's going on inside of us. Okay. How can God possibly be our standard of innocence? We're made in his image. That's how God himself can be our standard of innocence. Now, it's true that the internet and devices are taking away the innocence of children. If you hand your child, now I'm going to get really, I'm going to do tough love. with the moms and the parents here. If you hand your child an internet-enabled device, I don't care if they're 5, 7, 10, 13, or 15 years old, do you think that child can handle that? And they're just going to avoid, they cannot. They don't have the willpower. They don't have the discernment. So you absolutely, yes, must protect them and must control their media as much as possible. But in age-appropriate ways, over time, you have to allow them a little more responsibility, a little more permissions. You know this. This is nothing new. And you have to monitor their use of media, absolutely, through filters. There should be filters on the entire family stuff. There's so many. I'm going to give you a resource sheet with all the different types of filters you can have. One is called screen.guide. A Salesian sister told me about that. She uses it for her classroom, where you can power down devices. You can have times, you can use it from 10 to 12. You can monitor what's on there, what they're watching and using and doing. So please, it's dangerously naive for parents to think that their small children and even preteens and teens, young teens, can handle this on their own. So for the first time in history, we have the innocence of very small children being taken away from them. 5-year-olds are watching porn. We know this. We know this. Because also the nature of today's media is hidden and secretive. And before it was the TV blasting in the den, right? They might have turned the volume down and tried to watch something without mom. But again, there were so many laws about broadcast media before cable, but even cable, they couldn't get away with too much on cable, right? But now anything goes on this internet-enabled devices of all kinds, very, very personal, very, very intimate, very, very secretive and hidden. So our small children, for the first time in history around the world, are being exposed to grave evil with no context. Not that context makes it right, but at least it can help a child to avoid evil. And it corrupts them. It corrupts them. It makes them love evil. It makes them addicted to evil, etc., etc. Now, there's an approved apparition in Ecuador 400 years ago. It's called Our Lady of Good Success. And she appeared to this Mother Superior of some cloistered nuns. Those nuns are still around. They're still going strong. Mother Mariana, her cause for canonization's on. And she spoke to these nuns about our times now. She said, 400 years from now, this is what's going to happen. She said, it'll be a miracle if you find an innocent child anymore. And also current day Catholic prophecies are talking about digital media, AI, ChatGPT, all of this stuff, which are quite literally portals. Go online and look up some exorcists on YouTube, what they have to say about children and media and all of this stuff. Okay, we're talking real serious stuff here, okay? Our young people do not have the self-discipline, they do not have the restraint or the moderation for any of this stuff. So, and what parents will say immediately is, my kid's a good kid. They're not going to do any of that stuff. It has nothing to do with your child being a good kid or not. Your child's task in life is to be curious. They are supposed to learn as much as they can about the world, to try to navigate the world a little bit more on their own. They are pushing boundaries, right? Because they want to see if no means no. They want to see if those boundaries will hold. They want to see what happens. Will the consequences my parents told me about really happen? Or just natural consequences, not even sort of a punishment or anything like that. So it's not a matter of your kid being a good kid or not. And what you have to do is you have to talk to your kids about this stuff. You have to sit your kids down and talk about porn at appropriate age levels. I'm going to show you an incredible resource for children and porn to prep them. Unfortunately, you have to do a preemptive strike. You no longer get, if you've chosen to live in a media world and you're not living on a farm off grid, the world is preempting your rights as a parent to introduce X, Y, and Z to them when you think they're ready, when you want them to, and you have to do a preemptive strike so that your child is strong. And I'm going to tell you a really quick success story. A friend of mine, she lives in Brampton. She now has 5 little boys, but when she had 3 little boys, her and her husband, they introduced them to these books. They're called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and they're for all age levels. And her little 8-year-old son, she said to him, now, if you ever see pictures of maybe it's going to be the naked human body, and it makes you feel really funny and uncomfortable, and you don't know what you're looking at, you come to us. So your kids need to know that when they get in over their heads with media, unfortunately, with all your good intentions and the filters and everything, because kids know how to get around filters, but you still need to have them. They can come to you and you're not going to freak out. If your kids think you're going to freak out, they're not going to share with you, right? When they get into trouble with media. So her little son, 8 years old, his cousin came over, his 8-year-old cousin with his tablet, and he started showing him porn in her own house. And immediately her son knew exactly what to do because he had been primed. He went to his mom. He said, Mom, I think I'm seeing what you told me about. She said, well, thank you. That was very brave of you to come. She goes, thanks for telling me. I'm going to talk to his mother. Okay. And she literally told the mom, this mom didn't care. She could care less what her kid was doing. You know how parents are today. Some just really don't care. And she said, well, your son can't bring this tablet into the home anymore, okay? Or he's not welcome and you're not welcome. So tough love, tough love. All right. So as you know, you have to be incredibly vigilant as to age appropriateness, the filters. But here's the thing about filters. In the media literacy community, we say the best software is the software that runs in your head or your kids' heads. They have to want to avoid this stuff, all right? Only a pleasure trumps another pleasure. So you need also to provide good media for your kids. If you can, get them hooked on reading. Good reading, right? Now, if your kid has dyslexia or something, that's going to be more of a struggle for them. But provide more good media, films, videos. So there's something called PureFlix and AngelVid. If you don't know what those are, what they do is they take the secular, even the Disney stuff or whatever, and it pulls out all the objectionable content, swear words, etc. And it's totally legal because the media companies want your family watching their stuff. And if the only way you're going to watch it is if it's a little sanitized, they're okay with that. PureFlix and AngelVid. That's also going to be on your resource sheet. Find some good video games if your kids like video games. Again, books or whatever it is, find good ones. So it's not just no and depriving them. You're providing them the good stuff. What about the classics we read as kids? Get those back out. A Wrinkle in Time. I don't know if you read that, but that, as a child, I went to public schools. That sustained me to know that love and good is stronger than evil. That's the message of that book. I meditated on that for years as a kid. Beatrix Potter, the kids' mystery series like Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys and the Happy Hollisters, Trixie Belden, Encyclopedia Brown. I was just talking with my mom the other day about all the amazing books we had as kids. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, Hans Christian Andersen. Oh my gosh, these are timeless. And then allow them to use media with regard to their hobbies, whether that's they like astronomy, they like animals, science, whatever it is, sports. Get them invested in media about good and wholesome things. I don't know if you've noticed how much you go on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, but the word wholesome pops up a lot. And who is using that word? Young adults. Young adults who didn't have wholesome childhoods because of this. If you want your child to have a real childhood, they will not have one with this. You are robbing them of a childhood. And so they use the word wholesome. They'll say, oh, look, isn't this wholesome? It might be a little child or a little puppy, or I don't know, something that they think is so shining that they want to share. And they use the word wholesome. I find that to be so fascinating. It's a good sign, right? So here's the thing. What are we saying yes to when we say no? So I always tell young people too, I say, don't get into that trap. When your friends come up to you, know your church, your God, your Bible, say, no, 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 you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't have any fun. And it's like, no. Why? When you say no to vanilla ice cream, what are you saying yes to? Chocolat, okay? So why are we focusing on the no? We need to be focusing on what we're saying yes to when we say no. Every time we say no, we're saying yes at the same time. Okay. So again, I just want to stress, parents, you know this, that if you freak out, if you're all nervous and scared about media and afraid, that fear, they're going to pick up on that fear. Mom and dad are afraid of this stuff. Okay? No, you want to show them that they're in control. You're in control. We as a family, we're calling the shots. We're questioning the media, and we'll pick and choose what we like and what we, how we want to use media. All right. So there is a terrible expression, a terrible saying, too innocent to stay that way. Oh, isn't that horrible? Isn't that awful? But isn't it true? Too innocent to stay that way. So if your child's innocent by default when they're born. But if they're innocent without a plan, if they're innocent without knowledge, then that makes them dumb. That makes them uninformed. My mother said when she was in school, the boys would be harassing the girls. They would say to the boys, I'm innocent but informed. And that worked in the 1950s, right? I'm innocent but informed. Because they knew what innocent meant. I don't partake of all this evil nonsense that you want me to get into. I know all about it, but I don't want to do it. Or not necessarily that you know all about it, but you know enough, right? You know enough. Knowledge is power. Information is power. We can have some knowledge about evil without experiencing it, without loving it, without embracing it, without doing it. Our Lord Jesus Christ said, be clever as snakes and innocent as doves. Now, this is one of my favorite Bible quotes. And people, when I say it, people say, Jesus never said that. He most certainly did. And I listened to this fascinating thing on the radio one time. It's a long story. But this gentleman who was a convert to Christianity was saying, it's almost as though Jesus is saying to us, you can't be innocent without the clever. You won't be able to stay innocent without some clever in there. Unfortunately, many times we are as innocent as serpents and as clever as doves, which makes us kind of stupid, right? We don't want to be stupid. Stupid should hurt. Okay. And I'm going to give you a wonderful phrase from Jordan Peterson, one of my heroes. And I applied this immediately to parenting the media. He said, we can't always protect people, but we can make them strong. My friend with the 5 little boys now, who told her son about porn, she used those books on porn-proofing kids. She started homeschooling her boys because she said they're not strong enough to face what they're going to be getting, sadly, also in the Catholic schools now, many of the Catholic schools or public schools. She said they're not strong enough. They're just little kids. But when they get older, when they're preteens and teens, they're going to be strong enough to face what they need to face. And she wants them to be apostles and help other young people, help their peers, be strong enough to even help their peers. So one media literacy tactic is age appropriately, little by little, you bring some of the world into your home, not the worst of the worst, but some of the stuff that you still don't approve of, but you want your kids to understand why. You watch an episode of something together, and without saying, see, that's why we don't allow this, you start asking questions, the Socratic method. So what do you think about that show? Was it funny? Yeah, it was kind of funny. Ask them questions. What did you think about the way they treated the woman in that thing, or how the brother treated the sister? What would you do if somebody called your sister that name? Do you think that's right? Do you think people start using bad language because they see it in the media? And little by little, your kids are going to own it. It's not because mom and dad said so. It's because I don't think it's that great. And they can tell their friends, yeah, I watched that, but it's kind of gross. It's kind of a downer. And like, I have other things that I like to watch better, right? If they can own it at a young age, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. There's nothing more powerful than that. So you bring it into the home, you analyze it, because you're in control. You have the power. You defang it. And I hate to use this word today, but you inoculate. Not with evil. You're not inoculating your kids with some evil, but knowledge about evil. A certain amount of knowledge about evil at a distance. And then you present the countervailing good, truth, and beauty. Okay. And it can be done. And this might sound like a lot, but it's not. And when you watch my on demand, EWTN on demand, I'm going to send you the link, Digital Catholics. It has a different cover, so don't be surprised. There's just a woman using media on the cover at EWTN.com. You're going to get more of the tips and stuff that you can go over and over and practice at home. So again, this is not a lot. They say that parents actually know how to talk to their kids. When you're reading a book with your small children as they're learning how to read, you're pointing to the pictures and asking them questions, right? Well, oh, what's that? What's happening over there in the corner? What would you do in that situation? And so for your older kids, you just have to up your game a little bit. You're not going to ask them baby questions, but you're going to ask them more sophisticated questions. And I understand, I get that we panic and we want to give them the answers and we want to say, oh, please, this is so dangerous and bad. Please don't do this. But we have to have that conversation and they will surprise you, right? Young people always surprise me with how they're actually processing stuff. We think we know how they're processing stuff, but sometimes we are pleasantly surprised, like, wow, that's what you're thinking about? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Okay, I know how hard it is to get them to talk, first of all. But let me tell you something. It's never too late to parent the media. It's never too late to start to really engage your kids in open and honest conversation about everything. I'm going to tell you a success story that's coming up. An amazing, wonderful success story about a family that I know. They have 4 teenagers. And what happened when I was staying with them regarding media and their son. And because they had open, honest conversation about everything in life, and he trusted his parents, he could come to them with this problem. Okay, so that's a cliffhanger right there. So what I like to tell young people too is that there's not 2 sets of rules, one for the kids and one for the parents. We are all under the same sacred rule, the same sacred divine order. And that's why there's filters on everyone's computer and device, including the parents. Why? Because parents can be tempted too, right? Occasions of sin. Yes, sin, S-I-N. We're talking about sin with regard to media. And I tell young people, you should be going to confession about your media use when you use media badly. And not just porn, but other things too, like you've been ignoring people or you're wasting time when you should be helping people or doing your duties or whatever, sloughing off, right? If media is a part of our lives, if this is embedded in our everyday lives, then we don't get our everyday life perfect either, right? We're not going to get our media lives perfect either. And when we go to confession, we get sacramental grace not to commit the same sins again. Okay. All right. So when I tell young people, why, but like I would ask them, like, rated R movies, like, well, what about that? And they're like, well, we're not old enough yet. I'm like, well, you know what? If it's garbage, no one's old enough for garbage. You're never old enough for garbage. Okay. So innocence, we immediately think of sexual matters. But it's also violence, gore, dehumanizing things, Satanism, the occult, all kinds of uncharity. You know, we're watching people screaming at each other, neighbors yelling and screaming and fighting and throwing things at each other and destroying property, right? Dark fascinations, godlessness, and sin. So that also takes away our innocence. If we're delighting in it and maybe imitating it. And again, I probably don't need to tell you this, but be careful of those kid-friendly sites. YouTube Kids. Where do you think the predators are going to go? Right? So I've heard so many stories of like a child watching Peppa Pig on YouTube, and suddenly it's really not Peppa Pig. Something was sliced in there, you know, horrible stuff in the middle of Peppa Pig or whatever. So you can't be too vigilant, right? All right. So that ends my little piece on innocence, which is fascinating. We adults want to be innocent too, right? We're not going to have the innocence of a child, but we can have the innocence of an adult. And it don't mean stupid, okay? Because sin is stupid, right? Sin makes us stupid. All right. Now, I think what's really important, oh, by the way, my Digital Catholics, it's 5 30-minute sessions. And unfortunately, the only place you can find the reflection and discussion questions are at that link below, which you will also get if you text me your email. But that's the only place you can get the, they're really good. You know, so if you want to use it in your mom's group or you want to, you know, use it at home with your family, those are the personal reflection or group discussion questions. You can get them there. So I really think one of the answers to all of our media problems and all this gender ideology stuff, all this stuff that's coming at us, we just need to go back to basics. Our young people, some of them don't know why they're alive. I didn't know why I was alive as a teenager. Nobody told me that the most first and basic catechism question and answer, why did God make you? God made me to know him, to love him, to serve him in this life, and be happy with him forever in the next. We always have to go back to that touchstone. Now, notice it doesn't say be happy in this life, because we may not have that. Not everybody has a happy life. There's nothing wrong with being happy in this life or trying to be happy, but that's not our ultimate goal. It's to be happy in the next life, because forever is a long, long time. 80 years, 100 years, 50 years versus eternity. I'm taking eternity, okay? Now, if you have God in your heart, well, you're going to be happy. You're going to have joy. You're going to have joy no matter what, even in the hard times. But I think we have so much stress in our culture today about being happy. And let me tell you something. When I ask good Catholic parents, but they're not that intentional, when I say, what is your number one job as a parent? They can't get to this. They can't get my kid to heaven. Now, again, I really believe that today homeschooling has to be on the table. That's a whole nother conversation. But in today's world, I really believe homeschooling has to be on the table for Catholic families. And I will tell you, homeschool families have the same problems every other family has. Why? Because I speak at the conferences. I know lots of homeschooling families, and they confide in me what's going on. My husband's addicted to porn. My son is rebelling, blah, 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 whatever it is. But when I ask them in a big group, I say, what's your number one job as a parent? They say it like a trigger. Get my kid to heaven. Get my kids to heaven. I ask other parents who are not homeschooling. It just seems to be the dividing line. But they're good parents. They come to my parish talks or whatever. And this is what they say to me. I say, what's your number one job as a parent? To keep my child safe. to make sure my child's happy, to make sure they launch, they can take care of themselves. And then I stand there with my arms folded and I'm like, a nun, you know, a church, they have to go to church. Prayer. I have to teach my kid how to pray. I have to teach my kid prayers. So if we're teaching our children by example and by just always trying to please them, that life is about being happy. Happy is ephemeral. Happy comes and goes. We can't get up in the morning and say, I'm going to be happy today. I'm going to feel happy all day long. That's not in our control. We should feel bad when bad things happen to ourselves or others, right, that we know and love. So happy is not the goal. Jesus gives us a deep joy through all the sorrows and this valley of tears. But our goal is heaven. Now, because we don't believe in hell anymore, we think heaven's automatic. So what's the big deal? What does anything matter? What does sin matter? What does bad use of media matter? It doesn't matter because there's no ultimate consequences, right? Everyone goes to heaven because we're all good people. That's a heresy. We're all good people, right? So again, spiritual parenting, I'm not saying we're all bad people. I'm just saying that heaven is not automatic. We have to love God and neighbor. We have to want to be with God for all eternity. And that has to be our number one priority on this earth. It's not suddenly going to be our priority in the next life. So when I tell kids about hell, I say, you know, guys, the only reason hell exists is because a gift can be refused. If you don't love God and his ways and our neighbor on this earth, you are not going to want to be with him in eternity because you don't like him. You don't like him. You don't like his ways. And God is not going to force you to be with him for all eternity. Okay. But again, the opposite of that, what's the positive of that? What are we saying yes to when we say no to sin? We're saying yes to God in our heart. And God is heaven. Heaven begins now. If God is in our heart, heaven begins now. So if we're teaching our child happy, 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 buy something to make you happy, do something to always make you happy, pleasure, 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 we're setting them up to fail. Because life is not a bowl of cherries. I beg your pardon. God never promised you a rose garden. Along with the sunshine, there's got to be a little rain sometime. Sometimes a lot of rain. Okay? So let's remember we're Christians. Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me. Deny yourself and follow me. Okay? All right. So, and again, I'm not here to pressure you, parents. I'm here to encourage you and support you. So here's another burden lifter that I'm going to do. Even if you do everything right by your child, no parents are perfect, but you did your best. There's that theory of the good enough mother. If you don't know what that is, look it up. The good enough mother. As long as you're good enough, your kids are going to be fine. You've done everything you can. And your children still leave God and leave the church. You laid a foundation. You did your job. You did your job as a parent. You laid a foundation. They can't unlearn, unsee, and unhear what you taught them and your examples. You didn't just tell them, you showed them. God is always at work in their lives, okay? And keep praying for them and never stop. Every mother has to be a Saint Monica. I don't know who the patron for dads is on this, but I've heard a lot of stories about people who led terrible lives and came back because my father prayed the rosary every day of his life for me. Okay. But the moms have Saint Monica. All right. So I really believe that before we do media literacy with our young people, we need to do theology of the body. That comes first, and then media literacy, because if we know who we are in Christ, body and soul, male and female, then the why and how of making good media choices is going to make a lot more sense and be much more self-evident. So yes, we want filters, but we also want formation. So you never spy on your kids with the filters. You let them know that everybody has filters and you're going to be checking things. All right. You don't trust me. Trust but verify. You want to make sure that you can keep trusting them. That's what you tell them, okay? I do trust you, and I want to make sure that I can keep on trusting you, okay? So it's filters, it's formation, it's communication. Again, those open lines of communication, it's conversation. And we have a saying in the media literacy community, control is for the moment, communication is for a lifetime. So the younger they are, the more control you need to have over their media. But again, you're going to be loosening the reins little by little, explaining to them, you know, how to use media well, what the consequences will be, et cetera, et cetera. But communication about media is for a lifetime. Now, I used to do much more fun. I was telling Dorothy, I used to do much more fun workshops about, we'd sign family contracts, put it on the fridge. You can't put it on the fridge anymore because they're not magnetic. You know, we used to do like really fun things, which we can still do. Like I would have different colored papers, one for the young people. They could give their parents advice anonymously about their parents' media use, and then the parents would give their kids advice about their media use, and we, you know, pull them out of the hat and talk about it. But it's not an equal relationship. You are the parent. You're not their friend. You're their parent, right? You want to be their friend also, but that's secondary, and that's up to them. You can be their friend if they want that, but you will always be the parent. And you know what? Kids know that when you don't say no, or you don't follow through with consequences, they know that's not love. I've seen young people whose parents parent, and young people whose parents don't really parent. They can do whatever they want. And that kid is so sad because they know those other parents actually love their kids. And these parents just don't want to be bothered. You know, or they want to be, it's about them. They want to be the cool parent, the cool hip parent who's friendly with their kid. And I dress like my you know, mom jeans. They don't wear the mom jeans, they wear the kids' jeans and stuff like that. Okay. That's not helpful, as you know. So I've been giving Parenting the Media talks for about 20 years, but the world has changed and media has changed so much in the last just 3 to 5 years that I've been revamping everything and playing up the spiritual warfare side of everything. Because, oh, you want to hear something really interesting? The other day I saw Prince. Remember the artist formerly known as Prince, may he rest in peace. He was from Minneapolis. He was a Jehovah's Witness. He used to go door to door, because that's what Jehovah's are supposed to do, evangelizing people, even as a superstar. Did you know that? And yeah, he did some bad stuff with his music ministry there, music life. But at an awards ceremony way back in the 80s or 90s, he said he was starting to see what was coming through the internet. He said, use the computer, but don't let it use you. He said, it's a spiritual battle and you are the prize. And, you know, it was an award ceremony. Everyone was yelling and screaming. He wasn't smiling at all. And I don't know if anybody caught on to what he was saying. But seriously, if you were Satan, what would you use today to get to the youth? To get to everyone? How about something that they use intimately for hours and hours and hours every day? How would you capture their time, their imaginations, with misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation? So it's not about being optimistic about media or pessimistic about media. Sometimes I'm accused of being pessimistic about media. And I'm not. I just don't see, in the main, people, young and old, using media well. Do you? I'm not seeing that. And so that's what makes me sound a little bit more pessimistic. But it's not about being optimistic or pessimistic. It's about being realistic. We have the stats, we have the data, and it's not pretty. And you don't have to read these studies because you see it in your own kids, right? All right. So we Daughters of St. Paul, hashtag Media Nuns, if you want to find us across all social media, hashtag Media Nuns, we tend to be cheerleaders for the media because we want people to adopt technologies and use it well. Okay, but we need a lot of help today in our media world. Content and devices, just the fact that these devices are everywhere. And when you're looking down at your phone because of fear of missing out, FOMO, fear of missing out, you're missing what's going on around you. How about that? There's a woman in Toronto who wrote a book called JOMO, The Joy of Missing Out, meaning of what's going on the internet and social media and technology. All right. So Marshall McLuhan again told us that these means are not neutral. The medium itself is the message. All right. So they're not just neutral tools. Now, again, people will say to me, oh, everybody thinks that their times are the worst. True. Everybody thinks, the end of the world is going to happen in their day and age and things could never be worse. But I can prove to you that we are in a time in history, as I said before, small children have 24/7 access to porn and what our founder called the worst features of the world right in their hands. Why? Because parents have made it so. We finally have the technology, many forms of technology, to be able for evil entities, people and otherwise, to be able to carry out the most dastardly plans to corrupt, surveil, and enslave the world. Even just ads, what the ads are showing us and stuff. We have technology that tyrants of the past could only dream of. Evil tyrants. And again, you're rightly panicking, but your kids aren't. Your kids aren't panicking because they were born into this world. This is normal to them. Unless you're already been communicating with your kids, and you're doing the Socratic method with them, and they're choosing the good. They're learning to choose the good because you're helping them along that way. And they themselves are pushing back against the culture, and they themselves are rejecting what is evil. And I think, praise God, we are starting to see a pushback in the culture, aren't we? And it's coming from young people too, who are saying, I don't want this. Stop shoving all this stuff down my throat. And of course, with God, we never need to panic. So what I like to tell young people, I say, guys, all of this stuff you think this has been going on forever and ever, amen. I said, dial back 20 years, look back 20 years. You won't see any of this stuff. This what they allow on the media and all this gender ideology. Go back 20 years. Look at celebrities, look at sports figures, look at shows. It's not there. I tell them the laws, the dictionaries, the media, the news, the education, the courts, the hospitals, it just changed before you were born. It's never been like this, guys. So yes, if you take your child's tablet away, or you ask your teen to stop playing a video game, they're going to get very, very angry with you because you're taking their crack cocaine away. There's something called SAS, screen addiction syndrome. It is real. It is very real, but it must be done. I read something the other day, said we live in a world where parents are afraid of their children, but it must be done, right? And there's ways to do it. And little by little, they have to learn that self-discipline, that self-control. They don't do it because they don't want to do it. We all of us need a media diet. We shouldn't be using, I say to young people, do you play sports 24/7? No. Do you eat 24/7? No. Are you sleeping all day? No. And these are things that we love, right? And they're good things. And the media is a good thing too. It can be a good thing. I said, so why do we think we're supposed to do this 24/7? That doesn't make sense. So I'm going to give you some quick strategies that work. There's a mom, not even religious. She said, my kids come home from school. They have to do their homework first. Then they have 2 hours of active play. They have to go outside. They have to play with their friends. They have to do a board game, be creative, whatever, something like that. Then they can go, and then we have supper, and then they can go on the computer at some point. And then they have bedtime. And of course, no more computers after that, no devices. Because the devices should be charging, right? In the parents' room at 10 p.m. All the devices in the parents' room charging up for the night. No computer, nothing else available to young people in their rooms. And she said, my kids, they get so involved in something else, they forget about wanting to go on the computer. And half the time they don't go on the computer, or they have like 20 minutes before bed that they go on the computer. Another one is, again, providing good media, providing an alternative to just numbing oneself in front of entertainment all day long. A 12-year-old girl asked her mom, again, not a religious mom, who worked in media. She said, I want an iPhone, and all my friends have an iPhone. She's 12 years old. And her mother said, I want to see what's on out there on iPhones. And this was a few years ago. She went on, pretended she was 12 years old, and she had access to everything. And she said, absolutely not. But she said to her daughter, what else would you like to do with regards to media besides an iPhone? And her daughter said, well, I always wanted to get into photography. I'd love to learn photography. So her mother bought her a beautiful, not that it has to be expensive, but her mother bought her a beautiful camera, gave her photography lessons. And now she's like super popular. She does all the birthday parties and stuff, with her camera, but she's still not allowed to have a smartphone. Again, flip phones are okay for safety, right? But again, those should be monitored. Who are they texting? What are they texting? Who's texting them? Stuff like that. Those still have photos, they're still camera enabled, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm going to say something that might be shocking, but you don't need a smartphone until you're about 15. That would be the youngest. Now, again, your young people, you may think they can handle it younger. It's up to you. You're the parent, your children. But you really don't need a smartphone until you're about 15. Why? Because it's so powerful. So powerful. And you just don't have that willpower developed yet. All right. Now, these are some resources I'm going to show you here. Let's see if I have it. Where is my oh, I don't have it here. Thought I put it here. Oh, too bad. Anyway, it is a book called Glow Kids. And it's about screen addictions in small children and not so small children. And there's another one called, you can just Google them, Detoxing Your Kids in 2 Weeks. So we know this thing about psychology and the brain, that you can form a bad habit in 2 weeks or a good habit in 2 weeks, and you can break that habit, unless, depending on how severe the addiction is, in 2 weeks by following certain methods, right? And again, this is going to be really tough, especially if you haven't been monitoring or conversing with your child about media. You haven't really been parenting the media that much. But it can be done. It has to be done. If your child had cancer, would you bring them to St. Jude's Hospital and let them go through chemo? As harsh as that is, you would do it, right? Because you're going to save their life. Well, you need to do maybe some initial tough love, incisions, spiritual incisions with the media to save your child's soul, quite literally, to save your child's soul. And give them a good life. Give them a happy childhood, a good childhood. Give them a real childhood, and set them set them up well for adulthood. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you that story. I was staying at my friend's house, 4 teenagers. While I was there, their 14-year-old son, who had a smartphone, came to his parents and said, Mom and Dad, my friends are sexting on Instagram. Now, not publicly, because porn isn't allowed in your public feed, but you can messaging, you can do anything, private Instagram. messaging and all the other platforms too. And so the mother took the phone and she recognized their faces because they weren't just doing body parts. They had their full bodies and faces there. And she saw more of her son's friends than she ever wanted to see. And she called their parents. Now, was he a little snitch? No. He knew his friends would be very angry with him, but he didn't want to get sucked into this. And he knew how dangerous and bad this was for his friends to be doing this. When does the brain fully develop? 27, 26, 27. What part of the brain hasn't fully developed yet? The frontal cortex, where we can understand the consequences of our actions, right? So they didn't understand that this could easily go public. And once something private goes into the Ethernet, gets out there, it's there forever. So he wanted to protect his friends. And yes, his friends got mad at him and everything. And his mom took his phone from him for a while. He was mad about that because he said, Mom, I was honest with you. And she said, look, just 48 hours, give it a rest, stay off Instagram, stay off your phone. And then she gave it back to him. And I went up to him and I said, Sam, first of all, I'm thinking, what a mature kid, right? But he had this open, honest conversation. His mom didn't freak out. She parented, and she tried to help the other parents parent. I don't know how they reacted. But I said to him, Sam, do you trust yourself with all this media? And he thought for a moment and he said, I do, but I don't trust my nature. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that wonderful? So our kids are amazing. Young people, again, God is pouring out graces on them. They're smart. Our young people are smart. They have the hardware. We have to give them the software. We have to help them. Our young people today are whip smart in part because they've been exposed to so much knowledge and information, good, bad, indifferent, neutral, whatever. They're very, very smart kids. Okay. So I heard something on Catholic radio recently, and the priest said, it was a homily, and he said to parents, you can no longer raise your kids to be both Christians and neatly adjusted to society. You used to kind of be able to do that because society was much more Christian informed, but today we're trying to pull out the roots of Western civilization, which is Christianity, which built Western civilization at a breakneck pace, and replace it with ghastly, ungodly, blasphemous, horrible, destructive, unhealthy stuff in every way. So you have to get that in our minds too. I'm preaching. We have to get that in our minds too, that we have to make choices now. I recommend you put somewhere in your home, get a beautiful plaque or something. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Okay. We're not going to serve the society. We're not going to try to conform or half conform. It can't be halfway. Not anymore. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. You cannot serve two masters. You will love one and hate the other. And there's that famous saying, it is no great accomplishment to be perfectly conformed to a sick society. Our society is extremely ill. Okay. And again, parents are not called to be successful, but faithful. Your child has free will. And you can't control your child. I had a call from a parent the other day. She had seen me at a TOB conference, and it was very interesting. She was very distraught, and it wasn't really that big of a deal that her young adult daughter had done or was doing, but she was going on and on. She called me for advice. She wouldn't let me talk. She was going on and on and on and on. And she said, none of my other kids turned out this way. And I realized she thought her child was like baking a cake. If I put the right ingredients in, my child's going to be a perfect cake. It's like, you don't have control over your child in that manner. Do your job. That's all you have to do. Do your job with the grace of God. Do your parenting to the best of your ability. Don't shirk the hard stuff. And your child is going to turn out the way they want to turn out. You know what I mean? Ultimately, it's your child's choice. Your child has to work it out with God, okay? So, yes, you're going to be judged as a parent, but your child is going to be judged as a child. If you're, say you're, God forbid, your child should die as a child or a teen or something, they're going to be judged as a child. That's why the Bible has instructions for children too. Children, obey your parent, right? So again, this should be another little burden off you. I know that's horrifying because you're like, what? I can't personally save my child's soul. No, you cannot. I got to interview Father Gabriel Amorth before he died. He was a Society of St. Paul priest. He was one of our priests. And I was in Rome and I interviewed him. And one of the questions we had for him was, how can parents teach their children about Satan without frightening them? And he said, oh, that's simple. Teach them about God. Teach them about God first and tell them that they have a choice to make in life that not even their parents can choose for them. This is kind of cool, right? This should be empowering to kids. Ha ha, I get to make a choice that my parents have nothing to do with. He said, tell them that they can choose to be with God who loves them for all eternity, or Satan who doesn't. How about that? Okay. So I think the question God's going to ask you is not, did you love your children? Of course you did. He's going to ask you, did you do the right thing by your child? Or were you afraid to? Were you intimidated and cowed by the culture? Or you were afraid of your child getting angry with you? Or you couldn't be their friend, or something, right? Okay. Now, we have 5 minutes left. And I'm going to skip over a bunch of stuff. All right. And get to some more practicalities here. Give you some tips and a plan, a battle plan. I just want to share, your young people probably know who Billie Eilish is. She's a singer. I don't like all of her stuff, certainly, but she's very honest. And I don't even think she's probably maybe 19 now or something. And she said, I wasn't a tablet kid. Isn't that interesting? That's how young people talk about themselves if their parents just handed them a tablet all during their young years. I wasn't a tablet kid. But she did get into porn at a young age, and she said, porn destroyed my brain. Interesting, right? She's a superstar. She's huge. Billie Eilish. A tablet kid. Isn't that awful? Okay. Yes. So again, we are maybe you work in media. Maybe you use a lot of media in your work or at home. Even if you're a homeschooler, most homeschoolers have online curriculum, right? So we are called to live in media, but not of media. Like Jesus said, we're in the world, but not of the world. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done. Nothing is impossible with God. And you will see miracles. You will see miracles. All right. So, to review, your successful parenting ultimately depends on God and your child. Put spiritual parenting first for eternity. That includes going to the dentist. Better to enter into eternity with a cavity, right, than not enter into eternity. Yes. Okay. And again, homeschooling, think about homeschooling. It's not impossible. You don't have to do it alone. You work together with other families. I don't know of homeschooling communities in Ontario or Toronto, but they exist. Some are hybrid, partly online, partly at home. But kids are not getting, they're not going to miss out. They're not getting an education anyway in today's schools. Today's woke schools. It's indoctrination. You know that. Personally, I could not throw my kids to the wolves today by sending them to the schools. Unless you absolutely know that this Catholic school or this private school, you know the teachers, you know exactly what they're being taught, you know the principal, you know the school board, you can trust them. All right. You should check out catholiceducation.org, catholiceducation.org, because that is a wonderful Canadian resource of all kinds of stuff. Now, maybe you're not homeschooling right now, but you are the first educators of your kids anyway, about everything. PAFE, there's also PAFE, Parents as First Educators, another wonderful Canadian group. And so here are the resources, and then we'll stop. Oh, I'm going to do these. We have 1 minute to go over the resources. Okay. My Digital Catholics, you're going to learn about what does the Catholic Church teach about media, parenting and teaching the media, theology of the body and media, using media well, and what is the future of media? Where is all this going? We have curriculum for teens and young people on media from a Catholic perspective. This is a wonderful book by a Catholic dad who's also a psychologist, The Tech Talk for families. This is the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures book that is how to porn-proof your kids. It tells them exactly what to do when they see porn. Prayers for the media, mediaapostle.com. And your kids are going to love that too. They get so excited. There's this priest who loved media and technology. Oh yeah, that was his whole life. This is the definitive book on the porn lies, I like to call it. So any kind of lies about why porn is good or it's okay or it's normal will be blown right out of the water by this book. You can give it to your teen to read. This here is the best book for kids age 4 or 5 to even 12 on theology of the body. It'll give those little minds something to chew on. You know, your 5-year-old who's going on 35 and asking you all those stumping questions. It even has great illustrations and shows how the family is an image of the Trinity. This will last them for a wonderful long time. And then a random book this is for your 10-year-old atheist. 25 Catholic scientists. The new edition of the book is 28 Catholic scientists, mathematicians, and super smart people. Most Catholics, most people in the world do not know that the greatest scientists that ever lived and had the greatest discoveries were Catholics, okay? Because faith and reason go together. There is no problem there. Okay. Now, I'm going to send you, if you give me your email, these amazing handouts, Digital Generation Resources. I'm going to give you, John Paul II has a wonderful section in Theology of the Body called The Ethos of the Body in Art and Media. And these are bullet points on that. Beautiful guidance, amazing. This is a fiery prayer by our founder to pray for the media and offer up the Mass. When you go to Mass, you say this prayer where you pray that good media will increase and bad media will go away. And we pray in reparation for all the evil committed by evil media. This is Silicon Valley exposing all the things they did by hiring neuroscientists to addict you and your children. Digital media best practices. These are some of the practical tips here. And then this is a super shorthand, shortcut Spark Notes, easy media strategies for families. You're going to get all those goodies, and everything that I send you, you can send to other people. That's not copyrighted. Okay, you can just spread that around. ProtectYoungMinds.org. These are the people that created those Good Pictures, Bad Pictures books, and they will send you like every 2 weeks into your inbox stuff about young people and media, especially porn, and amazing strategies. These people are fantastic. If you want to get TOB books for all ages and all issues, body issues, sex issues, life issues, pro-life issues, that's your link. And then Best Media Lit books. And then if you go to this last link here, Best ML Articles, you will find all kinds of stats and studies in case you're talking with people or you want to know that. And then if you want to introduce yourself and your kids to what media literacy is, I have a little online slide share. It's like an online PowerPoint that's really fun to get the basics of media literacy down. Don't forget to watch Media Apostle and send me your email address. Thank you so much. God bless you. I know this was long, but I hope you got some, mostly like a shot in the arm to relax. I know this sounds like to relax and say, I think you know in your heart of hearts, this is what you should do, is put the spiritual parenting first, which includes parenting the media, and chillax about everything else. Let it go. Leave the lawn unmowed. You can skip a soccer practice. No big whoop, because that's only for this life. And spiritual parenting is for eternity. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sister Helena. It was incredible presentation, so many resources, so many different comments here. I think that everyone, you've got to text your email address, not put it in the chat here, but actually text it to Sister. Maybe if you want to put your phone up
Sure.
one more time. Yeah, so some of you have been putting your phone numbers in the chat. You're not going to get anything from that. Make sure you text your email address to Sister.
And that's all. Just your email address. No other words, or it won't work.
Yeah, you've got
just your email address.
Just your email address, and then you're going to get all of those resources. So, on the behalf of everybody here, I want to pose a little bit of a challenge to all of you that have joined us today. I would like each and every one of you to promise to say at least 3 Hail Marys for Sister Helena Burns. If you can, please pray a rosary for her. I think that sometimes we're so used to taking and taking and taking from our priests or religious sisters, and you got to know that they need our prayers. So if you've got the time, maybe offer a full rosary for Sister Helena. And if you have the resources to it, maybe even order a mass for her intentions, because we need to support our sisters. We need to support our priests with our prayers. So as you can imagine, putting a presentation like this, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time. I've been trying, Midday Moms has been trying to get Sister Helena Burns on Midday Moms for a couple of years now. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of persistence, a lot of bugging.
And if anyone is persistent, it's Dorothy, right?
Yeah, so we need to support Sister Helena Burns with her work. So please, if you can commit to it now, say, yes, I'm going to pray a rosary for Sister. Yes, I'm going to pray 3 Hail Marys for Sister. I know that, and some of you might even, be able to remember her as you're in adoration. We need to pray for our sisters. We need to pray. We need to pray for our priests as well. So anyway, I want to thank all of you for attending today's, Midday Moms. I want to send you all a big hug. Sister, I want you to know for sure, 100%, you got a full rosary for me. I'm heading off to the cottage. So I'm going to pray in the car, and I'm going to offer a rosary for you. So on the behalf of Midday Moms, remember to possibly visit CatholicMomsGroup.com. We also rely on your donations, because we very often go above and beyond what we were called to do by doing things like this. So please, if you can go to our website, look for the donate button. I know some of you have been great about making a regular monthly donation of $5, $10. It all helps. Right now we're producing 3 new videos for our moms groups, and we need a little bit of support. So anyway, I want to thank all of you for joining us. I want to thank Sister Helena Burns, and and I always like to say, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh and sing a song. Seems like we just get started, and before you know it, comes a time we have to say so long. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sister Helena Burns.
Thank you.
We'll be talking to you again, I'm sure. And Bye now. Goodbye, everybody.
God bless.
God
Bye.
bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.